If you would like to practice during this video, you may wish to get a copy of the practice sheet using the link in the video. The Hebrew alphabet is made up of 22 consonants. Vowels are separate and not included in the alphabet. The first letter is Aleph. Aleph should not look like the letter X. Rather, begin with the line going from the upper left to the lower right, and then add two other lines. Aleph. The sound that Aleph makes is, it doesn't make a sound, it's silent. The next letter is Beit. Beit. Beit begins with this arcing line, and then the bottom line goes underneath. Beit. Beit makes two different sounds. When Beit has a dagesh in it, it's b, like boy. But when Beit does not have a dagesh, then it sounds like v, like the letter V. Gimel is the third letter in the alphabet. Gimel. It sounds like the letter G. Gimel. The next letter is Dalet. Dalet sounds like the letter D, as in dog. Very important in Dalet to make sure that you have this piece here overhanging. The next letter is Hey. Hey. It's very important in Hey to keep an opening right there so that it's not confused with other letters. Hey sounds like an H sound in English. The next letter is Vav. Now, Vav, we use the script letter. You just draw a straight line. Vav. Try to avoid any kind of hook or anything fancy with the letter Vav. Vav. Vav has a V sound when it's used as a consonant. The next letter is Zayin. Zayin. Zayin has a sound mostly like the letter Z in English. Sometimes you can hear people pronounce it with a DZ sound, Zayin. But pronouncing it with a Z sound is just fine. The next letter is Chet. Chet. Now you'll notice that Chet is very similar to the letter Hey that we did just a minute ago. Now the difference is, whereas in the letter Hey there's a gap here, there's no gap in Chet. So in Chet, you connect those lines. The sound has a little bit of a sound kind of like the end of the H in the end of Bach. Johann Sebastian Bach. The next letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Tate. Tate. Tate sounds like the letter T. And to draw Tate, you begin in the middle, just like that. Tate. The next letter in the Hebrew alphabet is Yod. And again, with the letter Yod, we use the script. So it's just that short, straight line near the top of the section, Yod. Try to avoid making anything fancy like this. Rather, we just use the script, the straight line, Yod. And Yod has, when it's used as a consonant, sounds like the letter Y, Y, as in yarn. The next letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Kaf. Kaf. Now, Kaf has two different I guess, forms. It has its regular form when it's in the beginning or middle of a word. And then when kaf is at the last letter of a word, then it goes down below the line. And it has this piece overhanging here, kaf. Kaf has two sounds. When kaf has a dagesh in it, it has a k sound, like the letter K in English, kick. When the dagesh does not have, when the kaf does not have a dagesh, then it has a ch sound, like chet, or like the ch in Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach. The next letter in the Hebrew alphabet is Lamed. Lamed. Now Lamed has that long line above the top. It sticks above the other letters in the Hebrew alphabet. Lamed sounds like the letter L in English. Lamed. The next letter in the Hebrew alphabet is Mem. Mem. Mem has two forms again. When it's at the beginning of a word or in the middle of the word, it looks like this. When it's at the end of a word, it just looks like a square with a small tail hanging out. Here you can see an example of a typeset mem at the beginning of a word and a final mem at the end of the word. Mem. Mem sounds like the letter M. The next letter is Nun. Now for Nun, again, we use the script. It's just a straight line with a short foot to the left. Nun. Nun also has two forms, just like a couple of the other letters. If it's the last letter of a word, then it has a long tail at the bottom. Nun. And here you can see a typeset Nun at the beginning and a final Nun at the end. And again, just like in a few other cases, avoid putting anything fancy at the top. Rather, a Nun should just be a straight line and then a foot. The reason is when we put something fancy at the top and we write fast, then it could look like the letter Kaf. So we use the script for Nun. Nun sounds like the letter N. The next letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Samek. Samek is a circle with a hat on at the top, sticking out to the left. Samek sounds like the letter S. The next letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Ayin. Ayin. Ayin is made by first making this arc and then a straight line in the middle. Ayin. Ayin is another silent letter. There's no sound to it. Ayin. The next letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Pei. Pei. Pei is made, just start in the middle and wind your way around. Pei. Now Pei has two sounds. If Pei has a dagesh in it, it has a P sound, like P in pie. If there's no dagesh, then it has a PH sound, like phone. Pei has two forms. At the beginning or in the middle of a word, it looks like this. When it's the last letter, the final form has a long tail. The next letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Tzadeh. Now, to write a Tzadeh, you begin at the upper left, come down and around, and then add the hand up toward the right. Tzadeh. The sound that Tzadeh makes is a TS sound, just like tsunami. Tzadeh. Now there's two forms to the letter Tzadeh. At the beginning of a word, or in the middle, it looks just like this. If it's the last letter of a word, then it's a straight line with a long tail and a connector there. That's the final form of Tzadeh. The next letter in the Hebrew alphabet is Kof. Now, Kof has a long tail that goes below the bottom line. Then it has a second line off to the right. Kof. Kof sounds like the letter Q in English. Kof. The next letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Resh. Resh. Resh sounds like the letter R. Now, in traditional pronunciation, it would have a rolled R, like rolled R. But we don't do that. We just do the regular R. But when you hear some of the audio tapes, audio files this semester, you'll hear the rolled R. The next letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Sin. Sin and Shin both look the same, except for Sin has the dot in the upper left. Sin. It makes a sound like the letter S in English. Sin. The next letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Shin. Shin looks exactly like Sin, except for the dot is in the upper right. Sin and Shin. It's easy to get these confused, but it made two sounds in the ancient world, so the Masoretes distinguished between the two by putting the dot on the left for Sin and on the right for Shin. The last letter in the Hebrew alphabet is Tav. Tav. Now Tav is written by making this arc in a straight line down, then the foot. Very important to put the foot on the Tav here. Tav has a sound like the letter T. What I would suggest that you do is practice writing the entire Hebrew alphabet, just like you see on this page, from right to left, and practice again and again writing each letter. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pei, Tzadeh, Kof, Resh, Sin, Shin, Tav. Learn to say it out loud in order, and learn to write it from right to left, all in one line. Practice again and again, because you want to know the alphabet very well, because many things in Hebrew, just like in English, are key to the alphabet. Let me remind you of just a couple of points here. There are 5 letters that have a different final form. Those are Kaf, Mem, Nun, Pei, and Tzadeh. And then there's 3 letters that have a different sound when there's a dagesh. Beit, Kaf, and Pei. When Beit has a dagesh, it sounds like B as in boy. When there's no dagesh, it sounds like V as in violin. When Kaf has a dagesh, it sounds like K as in kite. When Kaf has no dagesh, it sounds like Ch as in Bach. Pei, when it has a dagesh, sounds like P as in potato. When it has no dagesh, it sounds like F as in phony.